you got married, you had 3 kids, you stayed out of the business for 17 years. You did, like you said, the ABC specials, and you kept relevant to the sport of bodybuilding, living a healthy lifestyle, trainer to the stars, including Michael Jackson and the likes. You stayed relevant to the sport, and then somewhere you got bit by the bug, and in 1990, I believe it was, you were approached by a rival federation, and you got bit by the bodybuilding bug at some 41, 42 years old. Tell me about that comeback.
Well, with the WBG back then, it kind of folded, but I remember that Joe welcomed it back with open arms. And then I came back to competition. I competed with you guys in Helsinki. And to me, it was kind of challenged because I had to develop the hunger to compete again after 17 years. It was tough because I was a younger competitor in pumping iron. When I came back, I was the oldest competitor. And I said to myself, if I could just crack the top 5. Because everybody said, you're going to come back and blow these guys away. But you know, you think about it today, if you're on stage and you don't have striations in your glute and lower back, you're gone.
Right.
It's all about that whole perfection, like yourself, you know, balance. And you had different guys like Dorian Yates, because in my time I competed with just me, Arnold, like Franco and Zane. But today you have much like 15, 20 guys, and the genetics have improved. And the truth is, the hardest thing for me was to develop the hunger to compete again. I wanted to do it because I always said to myself, after pumping iron, unfinished business, people always say, if you ever can come back one more time, so I did it for myself. And you know, it turned out that I was 325 pounds, 2% body fat, 100 pounds more than Arnold was in pumping iron.
Crazy. It's crazy that you put on that kind of weight at that stage of your life, knowing you were balancing a family, you were running a business, and you had these opportunities, but it did reintroduce you to the world of bodybuilding like no one else. You were on the cover of the magazines, 300 plus pounds. We had an opportunity to compete against you, which a lot of us never thought we can do, but the game changed. And from that opportunity in '92 came the Masters Olympia Championships that you pursued for a couple more years. Tell me about that experience.
Well, the Masters Olympia, I really wanted to win the competition, but then you had Robbie Robertson, you had the other competitors, I think Bill Grant and other guys. And I gave my best shot because I knew it could be my last competition. It was tough because, you know, when you got the judges today, judging the competitions, you can't hide any flaws. And being that I haven't competed for 17 years, I would say because the only thing missing me was that little roundness and maturity and density. That's from years and years of training. But I'm glad I did the matches because I was 44 at the time. But I wanted to leave off with a big bang. I'll never forget, I was in the dressing room, and you came in the dressing room, there's like 10 guys in the room, you said, screw this. All of us in one room, you know, we have the baby oil, the pump up and everything. That's why my shows are legacies, we're not gonna have that problem.
Right, you have more room.
But you gotta admit back then, you and I were competing, like for example, Helsinki, the situation, we need to be treated better.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and for the time, and we were in an ice hockey rink. I mean,
Yeah.
I think for me, you came back with a different perspective because coming off of 17 years to an environment that was less than desirable is one thing. For me, I was at a different phase of my life. I didn't care if this was in a back alley somewhere. It was the pageantry of being in the Olympia and having the chance to get on stage with you. Kevin Levrone tried that this year. Give me your perspective on that. He was 52 years old. He'd taken 13 years off of competition. What was your take on that whole Kevin Levrone factor, knowing now that he tied for 16th with about 10 other guys?
Well, Kevin coming back, I have to give him credit. He had some guts to do it because it takes a lot to come back after 13 years, especially after 40, 50, you're dealing with the injury factor.
Right.
You know, tearing the pec, like myself when I came back in the 40s, my body didn't respond like when I was 25, 30 because you can't bench 500, 400, you have to train smart. So in Kevin's situation, he doesn't have a choice because he tried being massive as big as he could. You could not look like in the 50s compared to 35. Like Kevin has the freaky legs, his back. He still retains some of the size, but after 50, your lower body just goes.
Yeah. So what realistic advice would you have for someone that wants to come back at 50 years old, and especially at that level of competition? Would you prepare them for defeat psychologically, or would you try to soften it by saying, look, just do this for fun? I mean, Kevin said he can come back and beat Phil Heath.
I say Kevin, in my opinion, should better off get posing. Because the truth is that you're competing against guys 20 years younger. It's very hard to get your body in that kind of a condition because the stress, the fact that also he wants the attention to coming back. And I think that, you know, he did great at it, but he shouldn't compete anymore because it's tough because you get guys like Phil Heath, like Kai Green. I mean, come on. I mean, like 50-year-old compared. Let Phil Heath be 53, 52, Kai Green 52, 53. Then I say, okay, Kevin, you got a great chance. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
But Kevin needs to do that because something inside of him wanted to prove it again, which I understand because I did the same thing myself.
Right.
it's all about that self-satisfaction.
Yeah, and
I give him a lot of credit for that.
And you were 10 years younger, and you parlayed that to another 4 or 5 years touring the world. And what was that like? You were touring the world at 300 plus pounds in the 90s by comparison to the 70s. I know South Africa was a long trip, but you got a re-energized look on how the global aspect of physical fitness was during your comeback. And it didn't seem that it didn't matter that you didn't win. I mean, you were just big again, and people loved the idea that you were actually a bodybuilder. What was it like traveling around for you again?
It was great because I made a lot of money. I get posed because back then they were paying good money, especially after the Olympics. You set up like 15, 20 poses in that exhibition. You could make more money than winning the Olympics itself, which was a plus.
It's a business, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also having a wife and 3 kids was hard because, I had to kind of like share my time with them. When you're training by yourself for competition, it's one factor, but when you got a wife and kids, it's hard because then basically you got to share your social life, and it's tough. But I had a chance to travel to different countries, and also what made me unique is the fact that somebody said to me, you can come 30th place, it doesn't matter because you're an Incredible Hulk. And nothing could have changed. In other words, if I never been the Hulk and came back to competition, I wouldn't be as popular as I am now.
So you think besides your wife and children, being the Incredible Hulk is your crowning achievement? I mean, the best thing that ever happened to you? Or was the best thing that ever happened to you meeting Joe Weider and being introduced to bodybuilding?
I say meeting Joe Weider because the fact that as a kid having nothing, he was the reason why I came to California. He's the reason why he kept me here and he put me on the map, because if it wasn't for Joe, I'll be in New York somewhere. God knows what I'll be doing today. So that goes for everybody else, including you guys.
That is crazy, yeah.
And I miss Joe because Joe cared.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Joe told me the last time I had a conversation with him? He said, it's a shame because he said back in the 70s, like for example, the 80s, guys had personality like the 90s, but he said the sport's changing now because it's just going more towards, I don't know where, because he said the magazine's lacking soul.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think it's true for almost every bodybuilder I talk to, regardless of the success that the individual has achieved. It all seems to keep coming back to Joe and his passion, telling you to go and be the Incredible Hulk and come back and bodybuild anytime. I met him when I was 20 years old, winning the Junior Universe, and he basically said I was going to be a future superstar, and I believed it. I bought into the dream, which took my training to another level. And the things that he said were going to be possible actually came true as a result of his love and passion for the sport of bodybuilding. But now that we're here, you got 3 kids. I get this a lot. If you had a son, would you let him be a bodybuilder? You got 2 boys. At this stage of what you know about bodybuilding, and he comes to you and says, I want to be a bodybuilder, Dad, what's your reaction?
Well, they had discussion before. My kids don't want to be a bodybuilder because they much rather be involved promoting competition because they see all the pain, the hardship I've gone through. And we're talking about different genetics. The good thing about us today, like when you competed, we have the future because you're involved in so many different things, like for example, like, being a motivator, being a worldwide speaker, yourself also promoting competition seminars. There's more money to be made, more business. Back in the time we competed, like if you come second, third place, you get the trophy, gone home.
Right.
But today, there's more opportunities. And I think my kids are smart enough to know they have genetics. Like me, I would say they might pursue it. I personally feel I'm happy they're not competing.
Right.
Because it's tough. And it's very tough to be a world-class bodybuilder today.